Hello, it's been a couple months. Figured I'd walk you guys through what's been going on with the car. Most of the work's been focused on the rear, but a little bit on the front. And we'll start right here up on the Cpillars. So I've added this panel to both sides. This has the curved shape right here that then transitions into the main section of the roof. And then the Z-shaped flange, which controls how the hatch, where exactly the hatch sits, basically cheating it over based on where you set this weld. And it is just this shape right here of the old window frame. It will not be watertight seal, just because you'd need a U-shaped panel to form a gutter. But I'm not going to go into the effort to make that part. This is still a decent sealing surface, at least for wind noise. But that's been in place. These two panels are pretty close to one another. The hatch area is only about an 1/8 inch that way, to the left of the car. Still need to form the bottom section of this, but I formed the hatch first in order to then let that decide where this panel needs to go. Been working on the trunk a little bit. So the floor is in place, and well, I started with just an L-shaped bracket going along over to the wheelhouse over here. And then from there, a big flat panel for the rear end that has a little trough on the bottom for the trunk to sit in, trying to keep it somewhat structural. And also a little bit of work going on to the bottom of the fenders here. Basically, I just closed off, made this panel out of a Chevy bedside for both sides. I may need to rework this and bring the fenders down all the way across the board here, because they do sit pretty high up on the car. Haven't decided exactly how the rear end's going to look, so that project will wait, and most of that will wait for now. But the hatch area is largely complete. The C-pillar panels have been set in place, and I'll just show you how this fits. The hatch was formed out of a 1/2 inch square tube for the perimeter, just to keep it strong. When you form a big panel like this, it starts to get a little warpy. The 1/2 inch square tube bends very well. It's a 16 gauge wall, and we'll see if I can do this one-handed. All right, bear with me here. There we go. Damn. There we go. All right. So there is a decent gap along the outside, and a little tight on the bottom. You can see I need to close that off. So the spoiler still comes across right here, but I will fill this area, put the flange in on the bottom, close all that off. And then for the hatch, I'm thinking most of it will be plexiglass. However, I'm going to need this shape to help form the plexiglass. Not entirely sure how I'm going to do that yet, but more refinishing, make this a little nicer. Probably get a flatter anvil for the English wheel, and basically finish that up, put a latch in it, and it's ready for hinges at this point, which is nice. The final moving panel on the car. So coming around to the front, all of this has been tack welded in place, where before all this was loose. That's where it needs to be. The height has been checked, just running laser marks across a lot of the car to double check height side to side, which has all come in very close, about a 1/16, 1/8 inch, which is as much as you can hope for in the garage here. Biggest difference is the wheel well shape and height is different side to side. Just when doing the wire form, it was difficult to match those perfectly. So that'll probably change over time, but for now, just keeping the project moving, we're gonna walk past that. The barrel shape has been finished off with these little guys right here. Nothing too fancy, just closing off the wheel well. Get this little shape to extend it out to the back there, and little flat panel. There will still be this sealing surface going probably along to here, so that we can seal in right here and then all along right there, which, much like the hatch, I doubt that'll be watertight, but won't be direct wind noise all over the place. Coming along to the front, these panels have been trimmed on both sides. A little bit of material was added to this one, I believe, and then this flat plane was added to basically all four areas were made at once. So one on each side up there, and then one on each side on the bottom, and they're all the exact same shape. So when you weld them in place, it forces all of those panels to come into being a similar shape. This is strength for the panel, and then it just helps me know that both of those are even side to side and top to bottom. Coming along to the front, the radiator, the E36 radiator, is finally mounted in place. So with the space frame, it only goes about this high, all the way across the car, about 13 inches high. So anything that needs to be mounted up high has to have a bulkhead, hence why the doors have this big deal going on here. And for this, it's decided on an 18 gauge plate coming up, then just a cross beam, mostly so we can get these guys into the top of the fender. You can see it's going to be pretty strong forward and backwards, but not left to right. So this M4 strut brace came off a wrecked car, and it's damaged up in this area. You can't really use it structurally, but for what we're doing here, it's plenty strong. Keeps the car, or keeps that from walking around. It's quite tight. And then little things in the engine bay, just tying the turbo intakes together so they have little mount points over here, and radiator reservoirs mounted. Doing a little bit more work on the engine wiring. This car has started once before, but it was very difficult, and the wiring wasn't in a permanent state. So spent quite a bit of time reworking this whole wiring harness, and it looks atrocious right now. It just needs to be tied up. It should run a lot better with this much cleaner wiring for the cam and the crank. And a couple little things. The turbo oiling system for the return lines are hard lines with a small rubber coupling for heat or expansion and contraction. So sorting out the wiring, got the intake off so I can run the starter wires. Just an entire mess of spaghetti in there that we just won't worry about for now. And come around to the other side. A little bit of work on the pedal box. So all of that in place. The remote reservoir is mounted up. All that going on. It's pretty final. The brake lines are all tied in and basically finalized. Won't have to worry about any of that. This will keep my pedals from being able to fall out of position. They still need return springs and all that. But it's a good start to have all this closed off, and if there's a fire in the engine bay, it cannot get into the interior quickly. Just see if I can pull this off real quick. It's a tight fit. There we go. So nothing too crazy, just how it was. And then this sits on top of that. You see the marking in there for an adjustment screw to the back of the brake pedal, so you can adjust where it falls. I'll just set that there. Doors are a project I started quite a while ago. They're still in the same state they were about 6 months ago. Inner structure is in place. It's not welded together enough, and I think I'm gonna need a reinforcement bar from right here down to the back so it doesn't permanently bend itself all the time. And then the basically ready for latches now. Now that we have that in place, set the sealing surface in there, get a latch going right here, and we'll be in really good shape. And I think that covers most of what's been going on. I'll close the hood so you can see what I'm talking about with the flange surface right there. Oh, she's getting kind of heavy. All right. Pretty even line all the way through. I used a laser level. I lined it up with the sill panel and then just cut it straight all the way across. A little tight right there, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. Need to add a flange on both sides to this rear section to hold it in place from flopping back and forth. And yeah. All right, thank you for watching. Happy holidays.